Hello everyone, welcome back to Coding for Beginners, where we make web development easy and straightforward. In today's video, we are going to explore reactive forms in Angular. So by the end of this video, you'll understand what reactive forms are, how they differ from template-driven forms, and how do we implement them in our Angular application. So reactive forms in Angular provide an easy, structured, and dynamic approach to handle form inputs. Unlike template-driven forms, which you have used previously, where the logic basically resides in our HTML file mostly, which is the template file, whereas reactive forms are built using our TypeScript classes. So most of the logic goes inside the TypeScript classes, which is handling error and all of that. So which makes reactive form more scalable and testable. So let's see how to set up a basic reactive form in Angular. So we'll go to our Visual Studio Code. So first thing, if you have not got an Angular project, you need to set one up. To set one Angular project, you can use ng-new, your project name. And once you have done that, you'll have a project like this one. And we will go to our app.module file. We will make sure we have our forms module installed here. So our forms module would be reactive forms module, this one. Once we have got this module, you will see an import for reactive forms module here, which comes from Angular forms. So we'll start by creating a simple login form. So for that, you can create a login component. I have created that. You can use ng-c login component command. So for that, we'll go into our login component ts file, and inside this, we will set up our basic form. So we want to create a login form. So we'll say login form variable, and we will make it equals to our form group. So in form reactive forms, we have form group and form group name and these things which have been provided us by Angular forms. So form group, and inside this form group we will have an object, and inside this objects we can have different form controls, which you can see here. So these form controls are the values which you want to show in your forms and you want to store it. So values we usually use for login forms are username and password, right? So I'll say username, and my second property would be password. Now to store this username, we will say username property, and that will be of type form control. So new form control. So these form controls are the values which we will use to communicate with our HTML fields. And second property we will have is a password. Okay, and this would be same, new form control. Okay, and this will be also empty string, which will be a default value. And after this we will have a onSubmit method. Okay, this onSubmit method, we will just print for now our form data in it. So we'll say form data. Okay, and we will print this dot login. Okay, so this would we will call it login form. Okay, for readability. So we'll say this dot login form dot value. Okay, so now we will go into our HTML file and we'll create an input field where user can put all the input values, and we store it in a form, and we can do whatever we want with that data using this. So we'll go into our HTML file. So before writing the HTML, I'll just go here again and quickly say, so this form group is basically representing a whole form group, and these are form control fields. These are basically just fields which represent each individual fields we are going to define in our input form. Okay, so here first thing we will say, we'll just create a #2 heading, and we will say this is a reactive form. Okay, and now we want a form field, so we'll say form, right? We'll remove this action, and here we will say a form group property. You see this one, this is provided us by the Angular form, and this would be equals to login form which we have created. Okay, and this will also have one more method which will be ng-submit, and ng-submit is also inbuilt method of forms which will be equals to our onSubmit. So every time this is triggered, ng-submit, like whenever user is trying to submit our form, we want to call this method. Okay, now inside the form we will define our input fields. So we will have div. Okay, and inside the div we will have a label, and this will be for our username. Okay, and we will have a input field as well for the label. So what we'll do is we will copy this, as we would need one for username and one for password, right? And this would say password here. Okay, and inside this input will be of type password. So we'll just do our basic stuff which we need to do, and it would be of type password as well. Okay, and we won't have the square brackets here. So sorry, this would be of ID here. So we're just giving ID for CSS and stuff. So we have input field of type password, ID of password, and now the factor which links our this input fields to our login form field, which is form control name. So we'll use the keyword which is form control name. This is the input, this is a property provided us from our forms group. So form control name, and this is equals to what? Password. So form control name, this we have made it equals to this password, so this form control name. Okay, so now we have linked them, and same we will do for our username as well, this username. So we can go here in this input field, and this would be of type text. Okay, and we will say here ID should be equals to text. Okay, and form control name here, this would be equals to username, right? That makes sense. And we'll just remove these ones here. Cool. So now we have two divs. Okay, this one is username and this other one is password, right? So after that, at the end, we will also have a button to submit our form, and this will be of login button, and this would be of type submit. So when we do that, whenever user clicks this, basically it will trigger this login form and this on submit method, this one, and we will have all of our form data with all the form field, the form control names. So to explain you, this form group equals to login form, this binds our form in the template to our login form. Okay, and this form control name, this connects the input fields to this specific login form. Okay, now if we go to our local host, okay, so we will ng serve our application and we will run our application. We'll go to our local host, go here to our login page, and we can see our reactive form right there. So we have a username, password and login field, and if we inspect this here in our console, once we fill up a username, okay, and the password we mentioned something, and once you log in, we can see that we have got our username and password field. So we've got a password field which is this, and we've got a username as well. So we have access to all of our form properties and we can do whatever we want with this data. So now next step is we will add some validation to our forms. Okay, so once we go here, we will go inside our TS file, which is login TS file, and inside this we will do some validation. So to do this, we need to add validators from our Angular forms. So we'll say validator here. Okay, these ones, and now we have access to validators here. So now inside the new form control, once we have defined our form value, like the form control name value, which is empty for now, we will give some validator. Now to apply validators, we have to use square brackets. Inside that we have to say validators dot required. So this makes our this field required. If we don't require it, it will basically, our form group has an error property and there would be an error in that, and we can use that to show HTML like a red error or problematic, something like that. You can put a comma and you can define multiple validators. So another validator we can do is like a username should be at least of a minimum length, right? So we can put a minimum length of 5, and if the length is less than 5, that would be another error for this validator, as this would be false. So there is this error object where all of our this form true and false values are getting stored. Okay, we'll do the same thing for our password. So I'll just copy this. Okay, and in our password, after that we will put the same thing. For the password we will do minimum length 10. Cool. So after this we'll go to our HTML and somehow we'll try to use these validators so we can show our users if there is any problem. So inside this div, after the input field for username, we will define a div, and for that div we will say ngIf, like we want to call this div whenever we see some error. So for that we will say if our login form dot get, so we want to get those error properties as I mentioned. So we'll say login form dot get username. Okay, and once we get that username, if that username is invalid, basically if any of the error is true, right, and login form, so we'll bind with another condition which is login form dot get username again and if it is touched, like only if it's touched, right? Obviously if it's touched and if it's invalid, then only we want to show the error, otherwise we don't want to, because in the beginning it would be empty. So if that is the case, then we will just use this small tag here to show a heading, and for that also we will have a condition. Okay, so we'll put a condition that if our login form, first we'll try to get the username property. So we'll say if our login username property, if it has errors, so you see we have access to this errors field, and if this is required, so login form dot get username dot errors dot required, if this is true, then you show us here a error, and that would be username is required. So that time we want to show this heading small, using small, and for this we are getting this because it could be null or defined. So for that we can do something like this. Okay, so we just need to put optional syntax here, and we need to put the required property inside this square brackets, as it doesn't know if it's going to be null or undefined. To solve that error, you can just use that. So we'll do this, and secondly we will do is we'll just copy and paste this one. Okay, so one is we want to put username is required, and other one we want to do is for our minimum length, right? So we will say username must be at least 5 characters long. So we want to show this. For that, now this one will say ngip login form dot get username dot errors. Okay, and inside this one we will say min length, so min length property. Okay, so now we'll just go over and copy these fields and put it here. Okay, first we'll remove this and we'll just put it here, so we don't have to do the same work again. And instead of login form dot username, this time we will have password. So I'll just use password here, and the rest things should be as well, like password, and that's it. Now we are good to go. If we go to our login form, so if we click on username and we click outside, you can see we see username is required. Same if we click on password and we click outside, it would say password is required. Okay, so for username, to check our minimum length, there's just a typing error here. You need to make this capital L to small l. I'll do that change here as well. Now if we go and if we see that if we put an empty field, that wouldn't work, right? It would say username is required. If we start writing username, like I write my name, which is Abhi, it will say me username must be at least 5 characters long, because inside our TS file you can see we have minimum length to be 5. Now as soon as I do my name, full name, you see that's gone, so the error field is gone. Same with password. For example, we start writing any password. Right now, as it's more than 10 characters, this wouldn't show error, but if we do a small password, you see it says that password must be at least 10 characters long. So that's how easy it is to do validations in Reactive Forms. So apart from this, Reactive Forms also allows us one important feature, which is allowing us to subscribe to our values whenever they are getting changed. I'll show you what that means. So inside our constructor here, we'll create our constructor, and inside this, whenever, for example, our login form, so we can call our login form, and inside this we can say this dot login form dot whenever our value changes for login form. So this is a built-in property provided by the forms. So whenever the value changes property is triggered, so we'll say this dot login form dot value changes, we can subscribe to it like observable, and we can get those values from there, and we can do whatever we want from that value. For example, if you want to make any boolean false or not, like if it's a form, we can change our save changes button, like we can show the user that there have been some changes. So if you want, you can save those changes, etc. So we can say here these are form changes, and you can basically update your backend or whatever you want with these changes if you want. Now if I go there into my form here, you will see once I write something, you see as soon as I write A and D, it gave me first, as soon as I wrote A, it gave me password is empty, username is this. I write AD, it gave me this. Once I finish, if I write something in password, you see it updates every time whatever I'm writing. So this is my password and username. If I clear this, it will also update that. So that's really cool when in real time you want to update your the whole UI depending on your form field, and this is really useful case to doing that if you want to enable or disable something. Okay, so lastly we'll see how our reactive forms can handle some complex forms which basically have like nested groups and arrays in between them, like form data which has a username, password and address, and that address field can have more object properties like street, city, postcode and other stuff. So for that also we can use our reactive forms. So I'll show you how to do that as well. So for example, here in our login form we have one more field, and that field could be address, right? And this time this won't be a form control, this would again be a form group like this login form. So we'll create new form group, and inside this we will create our form controls. So this is like a nested form, and we'll have new form control name. Okay, new form control, and this would also be empty string at the beginning, and like this we will have for our city, street, city and postcode. So you see now our form has got a bit complex, we want more fields to be taken into acceptance, so we want more data from the user, and here also we could have one more field, and that could be also another form group and so on. So our form can get more and more complex. So we'll go into our HTML and we'll implement this. Okay, so here we'll have this, so we'll have a label. So for we will, so we'll give it a for label of street, okay, and street name, and input will give id street, and form control name would be street, which is exactly as this form control. Okay, and next would be city and then postcode. So we'll just copy these bits and we just paste here. Now so we have to make sure this form control name is same as that. Okay, so now we will run our application and we'll use ng-serve 1200. Yeah, and once we go there, which is the login page, we should see our updated form. And once you fill up these fields like Abhi and here password, we fill something. In the street also we fill like 56, 65, London, postcode E6 something. Okay, and yeah, once we click on login, it should have all of our data, you can see here. So we have an address field, you can see this has become a nested form field. Inside that we have city, postcode and everything, then password and username. So great job, you have actually learned how to do reactive forms in Angular, and you can use this in a lot of Angular application, and in also real life applications you will be using these reactive forms a lot. So it's a good plus point, you know that. So thank you so much for watching today's video. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more Angular content like this. Feel free to leave any questions or suggestion in the comment below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.